In this video, I'll be discussing cropping in perspective. Please open the facade JPEG to follow along with this tutorial. This is a photo I took in Rome of this classical building, and as any photo, it's in perspective because perspective is the way that our eyes see and cameras capture reality. That is, things that are further away from us appear smaller. Sometimes it's useful to create something like an orthogonal drawing, like an elevation drawing from a photo. And this can be used to analyze the proportions of a building or to harvest texture maps for use in a 3D model. So let's get started. Go to the crop tool, hold down the mouse button and choose the perspective crop tool underneath. Then drag out a rectangle, roughly the shape of the building. And you'll see that this rectangle has a grid inside of it. This is a perspective grid, and right now it is flat as if it was laying on this image, flat as a plane. You'll start to see this plane change its perspective as you move the corner points. So go down here and drag this lower left-hand corner over to the corner of the building. And then grab the lower right corner and move it over. And then grab this corner, and obviously this building isn't a box, it has a more complex shape. So we're going to have to line it up along this edge of the building. And similarly over here, I'm going to drag this over so it's lining up along here. Now the grid isn't quite matching the building yet. It might be helpful to drag this edge down to some line which is more clearly a horizontal line. So I'll drag this corner point up, and I'll drag this one down so that this edge parallels this obvious horizontal line in the building. And similarly down here I'll drag this up so I can see if it's going along this edge. It's pretty good. I might want to zoom in, so I'll press Command or Control plus. Keep that Control or Command key held down and press plus a few times to zoom in more. And then hold down the space bar and drag over to pan the image. Then I have a closer look at what's happening here, and I can drag this over so that this line is parallel to the cornice line here. That looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and zoom out by holding down the Command key on the Mac or Control key on the PC and press the minus key repeatedly to zoom out enough. Now I think the perspective is pretty good. It matches the building. So our next task is to drag these midpoints up so that we can capture as much of the building as possible here. And I'll drag this one over and this one over. And let's just zoom out a little more. Okay, so far so good. Now we need to decide on the resolution of this crop rectangle. To help us with this calculation, let's click Front Image. This is going to use the width and height values from the image itself, which is 900 by 1200 pixels. And we're going to be cropping that down to the contents of this rectangle. So let's make these values a little smaller. Let's say that this is going to be 600 and this is going to be 800. And then I'll click Commit. We have a newly cropped image and we can check its document dimensions and see that it is indeed 600 by 800 pixels. And now we have something that more closely resembles an elevation drawing that again we can use as a means to analyze the proportions of this classical building or to use as a source for texture maps in a 3D model.